Let's talk about heavy grief days. When you've lost a loved one, certain days are more significant than others, as they remind us more specifically of the person who died. These days can be especially difficult. Anniversaries, birthdays, the anniversary of their death, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and other holidays. You'll be able to identify many occasions on which your loved one's absence will be felt more deeply. You may think it means you're not getting over it, or you're getting worse when you have these tough days, and it can be discouraging and overwhelming if you don't understand how grief works. Grief comes in waves. You can be doing pretty well and then suddenly get knocked to your knees by a big crashing wave. You probably already know that. And I call these days heavy grief days, or what Dr. Bill Webster calls temporary upsurges in grief days, or tug days, because these are special occasions that make you feel the pain and the absence of your loved one even more. And these upsurges of grief are temporary, but it's really hard to believe it when you're going through them. So how do you cope with these heavy grief days? We may want to avoid them, but my friend, anticipation and planning is key here. The first thing you need to know about heavy grief days is that you're not moving backward in your grief when they hit. If you can learn to allow yourself to feel the loss and plan how to deal with this tough day, it is actually an opportunity to remember your loved one's death and their life, and a chance for you to get some control back. Grief invites us to remember our loved ones, not forget them. To try to ignore the occasion or pretend that it's just like any other day is unnatural, because it's not just like any other day, and it actually increases tension in us. It takes more energy to avoid the situation than it does to actually confront it. So how do you approach these days? And our episode is going to include a list and a worksheet to help you with this, but let me share. First of all, plan in advance. Observe these days in ways that are comfortable and meaningful for you. Plan a departure from your usual activities. If you would normally work on that day, maybe that's not a good day for you to work and you're going to take the day off. Pick who you want to be with on this tough day. And you know what else? Pick who you don't want to be with on this day. Don't wait for people to remember. They're not going to remember. They're going to need some reminders. Give yourself permission to cry. Give yourself permission to feel good. You just don't know how you're going to feel. And feel and express all your feelings. Remember your loved one and your memories. Don't be afraid to have fun. Your loved one died, but they also lived. Find a way to celebrate their life on these days. Don't judge how you choose to deal with these days. It's all about what works for you. There's no right or wrong way. The first major holiday for me after my husband died that I knew was going to be really tough was Thanksgiving. And I knew, oh boy, this is going to be bad. It was one of our favorite holidays. So here's what I chose to do. And you may think it was a little goofy, but it worked really well for me. I live in Southern California, so the weather was still very nice in November. Just after sunrise on Thanksgiving, I took the chest of his ashes that I had at home and I put them in the front seat of my car. I then went to Starbucks and got my favorite holiday drink. It's always been a tradition for me, a peppermint mocha. I drove to Long Beach to a place that my husband and I went to often. I put a blanket on the sand, put the chest next to me of ashes, and played some of my favorite songs on the speaker of my phone. I cried, and I cried, and I cried. And I talked to Mark. I sang our favorite songs out loud. I probably looked like a total nut to anyone who was walking by, but I didn't care. I was in my own little world. It was painful and good at the same time. And it was part of grieving and part of healing. I did this 3 years in a row. It was really meaningful for me. So I wonder what would be meaningful for you. These special days can be what a client of mine called brutal. They're brutal because you feel the pain of the loss of your loved one more deeply. But they're also beautiful as you remember the fond memories and the love. So I think brutal is really an appropriate word, and that would describe the experience that I had on Thanksgiving as I sat on the beach, remembering my husband, bawling my eyes out, drinking my peppermint mocha, singing songs. As I said, we have a worksheet included in this episode to help plan for these days, what you want to do and who you want to do it with. So please check it out. Your stepping stones? Download the sheet or make your own list of days you know are going to be especially tough. Either by yourself or as a family, decide how you want to deal with those days. You know, if there are children who are suffering this loss too, it's really healthy to get them involved in this planning. My friend, what I want you to remember is that these days are tough, but they do get easier as time goes on and we take actions to heal our hearts. Remembering our loved one on these days and feeling the emotions is actually a part of the healing process. And planning for them gives you a sense of control at a time when things can feel very out of control. My reflection for you: these heavy grief days are hard, but with planning, there can be moments of remembrance and healing. Please don't let them just happen to you. Thanks for listening. Hope to see you soon.